Mr. TV presents a story that will break your heart and rebuild your soul. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't weak, and he wasn't a criminal. He was a father with a dream. And this is the real, documented life story of Chris Gardner, a man who went from sleeping on cold streets to becoming a self-made millionaire. A journey that began in 1954 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Chris was born into poverty and violence, raised in a home filled with fear under an abusive stepfather, watching his mother suffer while he silently promised himself that one day his life would be different. As a young man, he searched for escape and discipline by joining the US Navy, later stepping into sales and believing his future would change when he invested everything he had into medical bone density scanners. But the machines didn't sell. Debts crushed him, relationships collapsed, and the woman he loved left, leaving behind their young son. And suddenly, Chris Gardner stood alone in America with a child in his arms and no money in his pocket. A moment where most people break, yet his real test had only begun. Because eviction followed, rent went unpaid, and father and son became homeless, moving between shelters, subway stations, park benches, and nights of silent desperation, until one unforgettable evening when shelters were full and Chris locked himself and his child inside a public subway bathroom, holding the door shut with his foot, while his son slept on his chest, crying quietly so the boy wouldn't hear, not because he was homeless, but because his son believed it was just a game. And in that moment, Chris felt the deepest pain a parent can feel. Failing to provide it, he refused to surrender, because even in homelessness, he chased opportunity and earned a place in a stockbroker internship program that paid nothing, absolutely nothing, no salary, no security, only one paid position at the end for the best performer. And while others trained with comfort, Chris trained while hungry, studying at night after putting his son to sleep, standing in food lines, hiding his homelessness, running from daycare before closing time, managing every second like gold, making more calls than anyone, skipping lunch breaks, refusing bathroom breaks just to increase productivity. Because for him, failure didn't mean embarrassment, it meant starvation and losing his child. And every rejection on the phone echoed one truth: my son is watching. A thought that became his fuel, his discipline, his survival system. And day after day, he chose hope when life offered humiliation. He chose responsibility when despair begged him to quit. Until the day finally arrived when the results were announced. And out of all candidates, Chris Gardner was selected, not because of luck, but because pain had sharpened him. And when he walked out into the crowd with tears streaming down his face, it wasn't joy for money, it was relief for survival, for dignity restored, for a promise kept. And from that moment his life slowly transformed as he became a successful stockbroker, later founding his own firms, building wealth step by step, but never forgetting the cold floors, the hunger, the silence of the nights, the child sleeping on his chest. And years later his story inspired the world through the pursuit of happiness, making millions cry. Yet the real story was harder than the movie, because Chris Gardner didn't chase happiness, he earned it through sacrifice, discipline, and unbreakable belief, proving to the world that circumstances do not define destiny, that poverty is not a character flaw, that a man can fall to the lowest point and still rise if he refuses to quit. And now this story stands as a mirror for anyone watching, asking a final question that cannot be ignored. If a homeless father sleeping on a bathroom floor could change his destiny, what excuse do you have? This was not just a story to entertain you, it was meant to wake you up. MRTV, where real pain turns into real power.